Humza Yousaf accuses Alex Salmond of abusing power in office. That's incredible. Incredible. That's amazing. The shamelessness of this man. The shamelessness of this man. That's like me calling Mr. Clean a baldy bastard. That's like just the absolute shamelessness of it. I mean, it's grown back, kind of, right? But just the cheek, the absolute cheek. Former First Minister Humza Yousaf has accused his predecessor Alex Salmond of abusing his power while in office because, as is very common among politicians, absolutely nothing is their fault. It was the fault of the previous guy or the previous two guys, or the previous three guys, blah, blah, blah. Nothing is ever their fault because that's just the way politicians work. Mr. Salmond, who was cleared of allegations of sexual impropriety in the High Court in 2020, said he had a sleepy cuddle with one complainer in his official residence. Now, basically, for those of you that don't know, this was a whole thing where Alex Salmond left the party and sort of faded into the sunset. Well, if the election doesn't go my way, I'll resign. So after the Scottish referendum, it didn't go his way, so he resigned, which is standard practice for politicians. And then he let Nicola Sturgeon take the reins, but because Nicola Sturgeon was more focused on letting 40-year-old men getting changed next to your 5-year-old daughter instead of Scottish independence, the main thing that the SNP are going to go after, Alex Salmond teased a return to the SNP to, put it back on track to its actual goals instead of all the other woke nonsense. Nicola Sturgeon felt very threatened by that. And then suddenly there was a bunch of Me Too's that happened in the party against Alex Salmond, and then it went to court, and it turned out that a bunch of these victims were actually coached, allegedly, by the SNP, and Alex Salmond ended up winning a massive payout for all of these allegations. So Alex Salmond won in the end, which is why he's still around. And yeah, the SNP did a lot of dodgy stuff to try and get rid of him because the high upper echelons of the party were worried about him returning and they would lose their power. Because, like we've discussed many times before, the government will do absolutely disgusting things to protect its own power, up to and including executing your children. But anyway, responding to the criticism made in a new BBC documentary, he said Mr. Yousaf had been reduced to smears in a quest for relevance because no one's really given a crap about Humza Yousaf ever since he had to step down as leader because he did such a shit, awful, terrible job like he has done in every single position he has ever held in the Scottish government. Concerns are also raised in the show about Mr. Salmond's temper, with one former colleague saying that she was brought to tears. The former First Minister has previously defended his conduct in government and has said that he is resting on the verdict of his trial. He has accused high-ranking members of the government, led by his protege, Nicola Sturgeon, of conspiring against him, something she dismissed as absurd. Even though that did kind of come out a little bit in the trial, and there was even a whistleblower that came out with a lot of evidence that the SNP government actually arrested and tried to have put in jail and put a gag order on him so the evidence couldn't come out. Mr. Salmond led the government between 2007 and 2014, with Miss Sturgeon succeeding him. Their relationship broke down following complaints about his conduct, both to Scottish Government officials and to the police. Mr. Salmond successfully took civil legal action against Miss Sturgeon's administration for its handling of an internal investigation, ruled to be tainted with apparent bias, and he was awarded £500,000 because basically they did do a lot of schemy stuff against him, and that's what the courts found. At the subsequent criminal trial, Mr. Salmond admitted to having a sleepy cuddle with one complainer that his defence lawyer called a bit of how's your father with another. Both members of staff were considerably younger than the ex-First Minister. Mr. Yousaf, who replaced Miss Sturgeon after she unexpectedly resigned last year, told the BBC documentary that the First Minister is ordinarily the most powerful person in the room. You can choose to use that power appropriately, or you can choose to abuse it, the former SNP leader said. That very, very expensive motorhome was just resting in my mother's driveway. And on too many occasions, given the behaviour that Alex has already admitted, there was too many instances of that abuse of power. He also said the civil court defeat made the government look incompetent, which it is for a fact. They couldn't run a piss up in a brewery, let alone a fucking country. Salmond hits back. Mr. Salmond branded his critic Humza the Brief, calling him the new self-appointed authority on personal conduct and morality. Even though Humza Yousaf has an absolute cheek to be talking about any of this, he abused that power. Humza, you wanted people imprisoned for up to 7 years for memes they had on their phone, so not even posting them anywhere, not even posting them, not even sharing them, not even sending them in DMs, just possession of offensive memes. You wanted them to get up to 7 years in prison, and also for the content of private conversations that they had in their own homes. And you're trying to accuse other people of abuse of power. Humza Yousaf is a joke. I've just read that. I am comfortable with my contributions as First Minister to advancing Scotland's interests and the cause of independence, he said. I doubt Humza can say the same, nor that it will be said of him. Posting about the documentary on X, Mr. Salmond suggested he regretted taking part in what he did not consider to be serious programming. He said the second episode, which focused on the investigations into allegations of harassment, plumbed new depths even for the BBC. The Alba Party leader argued because of all the fuckery that happened in the SNP, Alex Salmond ended up leaving the party entirely and formed his own party, the Alba Party. The Alba Party leader argued the documentary, which was made by Firecrest Films, focused on the psychodrama between him and Miss Sturgeon and neglected other issues, such as gender recognition reforms and the ongoing police investigation into SNP finances, because one thing that seems to be very, very common with the SNP is tons of money just keeps going missing. Now, that is what happens in government. That's why people get into government. They want to collect everybody's taxes and then dip the coffers and fill their own pockets. That is what every single one of them do. Every single one of them do that. However, the SNP got a little bit too cocky and they got caught. They got so caught that the police were kind of forced to investigate it. Unfortunate. I mean, you would think if being a politician, you would at least be good at stealing. Like, that's why you get into the job. You don't get the job if you're not good at it. Right? The same as like a programmer doesn't get hired if he's not good at programming. He's not going to last very long. If you're a politician and you want to become a career politician, then you have to get good at stealing and hiding it. Otherwise, you're not going to last very long. But anyway, a spokesman for BBC Scotland said, the series provides an in-depth look at the recent history of the SNP from 1987 to 2023. Have a look at not the 1930s. Have a look at the SNP during the 1930s. Wow. They wanted to make an alliance with a certain other party, probably nothing to worry about, Google it, and includes a broad range of contributors who shared their insights. In the documentary, Mr. Salmond said he regretted that he no longer spoke to Miss Sturgeon. I don't really do hurt feelings very much, but it's a big regret that Nicola and I are no longer on speaking terms, he said, and I seriously doubt it's going to improve. Now, those not in the know, Nicola Sturgeon was Alex Salmond's little protege, and he was clearly grooming her to take over the party. Like, she was like his next in line, you know, the Sith training his apprentice, right? That is what he was doing. He was training her to take the reins of the party, which is why when he resigned in 2014, he went, there you go, Nicola, and she took over the party, because he was training her for it. And then when he teased a little bit of a comeback because she went in a completely different direction to what he envisioned, she decided to engineer a lot of Me Too's against him so that she could not only just get him to not come back to the party, but also get him put in prison. So yeah. The ex-SNP leader added, now that's a great pity because I did indicate that you shouldn't say anything is forever, but that's the way it looks and that's just the way it's going to be. We just have to let the past take care of itself. A Holyrood inquiry into the government's handling of complaints against Mr. Salmond found Miss Sturgeon had misled MSPs over a meeting with her predecessor in her home in 2018, but cleared her of breaching the ministerial code, even though lying to your fellow MPs is in fact a breach of ministerial code. So it's like, yeah, we found him guilty of murder, but he didn't break the law. Okay. That makes sense. In 2021, Mr. Salmond launched the Alba Party. It has been highly critical of Miss Sturgeon, Mr. Yousaf, and current First Minister John Swinney. Miss Sturgeon said Mr. Salmond was, for a long time, a very positive force in my life, adding, but I think I had to learn how to be myself. Mr. Salmond described himself as a tough taskmaster when he was in charge of the government. Miss Sturgeon said her predecessor was prone to outbursts and that his temper was out of control at times. I would also be very, very frustrated a lot if I was leading a party of idiots. I've got friends who are actually members of the SNP, they actually work for them. No offence, boys. No offence. He said while people in the SNP had learned to put up with it, she suggested it was not actually always acceptable when in government. Former SNP MSP Linda Fabiani told the documentary Alex would let rip. The first time it happened to me, I was so shocked, a little bit tearful on the way home. She said she did not consider it bullying. Mr. Salmond's former advisor, Jeff Aberdeen, said he was sacked 7 times. For some reason, he'd always expect to see me the next day, he added. He didn't really care. Mr. Aberdeen also said that his former boss was very, very angry about losing his Westminster seat in 2017, believing he had been let down by the party. Following the election defeat, Mr. Salmond launched a show on Russian state broadcaster RT. Miss Sturgeon said her former mentor knew how difficult the job was, adding, shouldn't he have tried a bit harder to make sure that managing his ego wasn't one of the problems that landed on my desk? Liz Lloyd, Miss Sturgeon's ex-chief of staff, told the documentary it was a real sign that he didn't really care how he was perceived anymore. He was going to do what served him and not what served the party, not what served the country. You just described every single politician. You just described all of them. Mr. Salmond, who suspended his RT show in 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, said his successor had been annoyed because she had not been told about the show before it launched. He added, I wasn't a member of parliament. The simplest thing to say was Alec makes his choices. I make mine, full stop. By the way, see, in regards to all this stuff about, like, recently with, like, Tenet Media and stuff like that, I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't know what Tenet Media was until this stuff all came out. And I am so happy that I absolutely refuse to work with any big agencies. Right? I'm not going to name names, but all of the big right-wing agencies that you've heard of have all come sniffing. One guy was adamant about having me work for him, and I said no to all of them. Also, one of them was RT. RT did want me to come and like do stuff for them, and I said no, not out of any hatred for Russia or out of any, you know, loyalty to my nation. I mean, I'm loyal to my nation, not my government. I'm loyal to my nation. However, all of this was purely because I don't want a boss. That was literally the only reason. Hey, why don't you come and work for us? I went, no, because I don't want to work for you. Like, I want full control of my content. I like to do things my own way. Like, so that's the only reason I've never been caught up in any of this stuff. No one pays me money. We get no government grants. There's no agency or anything that I work for or anything like that. It's all just me. And I get no money from any other sources. And it's purely just been by blind luck that I've not been embroiled in any of this stuff. And it's all purely because I don't want a boss. I don't want a boss. I am my own boss. Mr. Salmond is in an ongoing legal battle against the Scottish Government, alleging that no one was held accountable for the botched handling of its harassment inquiry. He lodged a Court of Session petition alleging misfeasance, the wrongful exercise of lawful authority, by civil servants. The government said it would defend its position robustly. SNP MSP Fergus Ewing, a former cabinet minister and frequent critic of the recent party leadership, claimed there has been a concerted campaign to destroy Mr. Salmond by senior figures in Miss Sturgeon's government. He told BBC Radio's Good Morning Scotland programme that the ex-minister's reputation was entirely intact after being acquitted, because they actually looked into it and found that a lot of it was a lot of shite. But anyway, asked about Mr. Salmond's leadership style, Mr. Ewing said, you need a strong leader, you don't need a shrinking violet. Who amongst us is perfect? During the Scottish parliamentary inquiry, Miss Sturgeon dismissed as absurd suggestions that anyone in her government acted with malice or as part of a plot. That claim is not based on any fact, she told MSPs. And isn't it very good that Miss Sturgeon tells the truth about absolutely everything? Like where money goes. She said that while undoubtedly mistakes were made, the government tried to do the right thing. Salmond and Sturgeon, a troubled union, is available on BBC iPlayer from Tuesday, as well as being broadcast on the BBC Scotland channel on Tuesday and Wednesday. And it's just a case of, I mean, I might actually watch that, because a lot of really schemy stuff did happen during that Me Too thing, to the point where I had to go to court and Salmond won the case, and he got a $500,000 payout. And it was very conveniently timed for when he teased a return to the SNP to put it back on the right path. And then the government all panicked because, see, as soon as you directly threaten these people's power, god damn, they will do heinous stuff to you to prevent you from doing that. But it'll probably be a really interesting show.